Welcome to Hack the Entrepreneur, the show which reveals the fears, habits, and inner battles behind big-name entrepreneurs and those on their way to joining them. Now here is your host, John Naster.
Hey, this is Hack the Entrepreneur. Thank you so much for joining me again today. We've got a really exciting show for you today, so let's get into it. I am your host, John Naster, but you can call me Johnny. My guest today has led an absolutely fascinating journey as a musicologist, professional DJ, and an entrepreneur. At just 16 years old, he got started as a professional DJ with the goal of working in the epicenter of electronic music, Ibiza, Spain, which he accomplished when he became resident DJ for 6 years at Pacha. He also worked as a consultant and crafted 24-hour playlists for restaurants and retail clients. But during this time, he found himself profoundly frustrated by the tools available to him as he plumbed his knowledge for unique flowing track lists. So he set out to solve his problem, and he's created the world's first AI DJ with an algorithm and app called Muru Music. And he's now determined to change the world through music. Now, let's hack Nicc Johnson. As you're going to hear in this conversation with Nick, we discuss ways to find ideas and then turn them into products for your customers. Some ways we go over, some ways we don't. One of the best ways that I've found to collect ideas is to get feedback by conducting surveys, and it's found that it's absolutely critical to my business success. With Typeform, the results don't lie. Typeform will give you a 57% completion rate on surveys against the industry average of 20%. It's versatile and you can use it at every stage of your sales funnel. To research, for lead generation, or even to sell stuff with Stripe integrations, tutorials, and quizzes. And the best part of all of this is that Typeforms are a joy to fill out, meaning that I love to fill them out myself and I love to use them in my business because I know that my listeners and my customers will enjoy filling them out too. The experience on mobile it's sublime, fun even, you could say. And whoever has said that about a typical survey. Businesses don't have to be boring. Remember, what you ask matters, and how you ask is everything. Right now, you can sign up for free. Go to typeform.com/hack. Plus, for being a Hack the Entrepreneur listener, you can upgrade to the Pro and you'll get 30% off for the first 6 months. But to get started for free, go to typeform.com/hack. They have absolutely stellar support staff and a help center to get you going fast. Remember, rule number 1 when collecting data: put your people first, data second. And ironically enough, you'll get all the data that you'll possibly need. Get started today at typeform.com/hack. We are back with another episode of Hack the Entrepreneur. And today we have a very, very special guest. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Good to be here.
Yeah, it is. I think we're going to have a lot of fun. And I've been looking forward to this conversation. So what do you say we jump into it?
Let's do it.
All right. Nick, you are a man that has worn many hats. But today we're talking to Nick the Entrepreneur. So as an entrepreneur, Nick, could you tell me, what is the one thing that you do that you feel has been the biggest contributor to your successes so far?
I think it's actually a combination of things that have made me achieve success, if you will. But if I had to pinpoint one specific quality, and this goes back to my previous experience as well, I think it's not fearing the word no. So in other words, I don't really have a fear of rejection. And I think partly that's because I've been self-employed since I was 14 and, had a career as a DJ. So I've had to deal with a lot of rejection for a very, very long time.
Wow. Okay. So we're going to get back to this DJing as a 14-year-old, but so this not fearing the word no and the lack of fear of rejection, is this something that you had to sort of develop since being self-employed? Or is it something that kind of always came to you, like sort of innately?
I think starting out quite young, it was more a stubbornness than anything else. It wasn't necessarily that I was good at hearing the word no. It was just a stubbornness I had. But I did learn over time, and that's definitely a skill you have to learn, that it was okay to hear no, and that you could work through that and actually still be successful on the other side. I mean, nobody likes to hear no in any situation. But in my case, it doesn't set me back or slow me down, because I know that when I hear no, I'm getting closer to the yes. And I've proven to myself over and over again in the last 20 years that if I stay focused and persevere where others would usually cop out, I will get the yes every single time. So that's what motivates me, and that's what helps me stay grounded and stay focused.
Wow. So I like this. So hearing the no is actually getting you one step closer to the yes, meaning that you're just asking the wrong people or the wrong questions, or that you need to maybe tweak your pitch or what you're trying to get a yes for.
Yeah, well, exactly. It could be a variety of things. In my case, now as an entrepreneur, when I'm raising money, as I've done in the past, sometimes you're just talking to the wrong person, and you can get very upset about that person not wanting to join the team. Or you can sit back and look at it and go, well, actually, this person doesn't actually add anything to this company. It was my mistake in the first place to contact this person, because when you talk to the right investor, it actually becomes a lot easier. And you learn that, again, that comes with experience, because obviously you're super excited to get investment. So when people say no, you start doubting yourself. Is it me? Is it the company? Is it the idea? But this is something that you just have to learn. But other times it can also just be, as you said, where you just have to tweak the message. You might have the intent is there, and the ambition, and people can see that about you, but you just have to tweak the message a bit before you get the response that you want.
Yeah, it's basically not letting the no shut everything down and be like, well, that was a terrible idea, on to something else.
Exactly.
And
or
also,
even worse, never try again.
Even worse, yeah. And you mentioned something very, very crucial to it all in there, was admitting that it was your mistake and not trying to put the blame onto other people or other circumstances or other things.
Yeah, I mean, I think with anything that we do in life, it's very easy to pass the blame onto anyone else. I, again, from a young age, just had to confront myself with a lot of things and learned that, you know what, it's up to me. It's not up to anyone else. So the same reason I started this company, because I felt that what we're building had to be built. I could complain about it and I could tell other people to do it, but that wasn't going to happen. So, put the money where your mouth is and build it yourself.
I love it. I love it. If you want something done, you just have to build it yourself.
Exactly.
Don't wish somebody else would build it for you.
Yeah.
We live in that age now. Now's the time to build these things.
Exactly.
For ourselves and for hopefully millions of other people. So I don't want to gloss over the fact that at the very beginning, for your one thing, you said it's a combination, and then we kind of forced you into one thing. Do you have something else you want to sort of fill into, like what else is part of that combination?
I think it just has to do with the way I was brought up and the path I chose, which was just working for myself from my very first job, which was, working at a package tour hotel, setting up lighting for terrible shows that they had on every night, and gardening before I became a DJ. And all these different experiences taught me different things. And one of the big skills I learned was dealing with people from all walks of life. And I think that's a quality that I've learned and built on over the years, that has allowed me to achieve a lot more than others could, because I know how to adapt myself to different situations, but still stay very true to me. I don't pretend to be anyone else that I'm not, but I know how to have a conversation with somebody depending on my audience. And that's helped me open many, many doors that otherwise I wouldn't have been able to open. It's allowed me to contact people cold that otherwise would have never responded to me. And it's sort of putting myself in their shoes and understanding what they want out of something before I, reach out to them, and learning that everyone's busy and nobody's going to do you any favors. So that if you are contacting somebody or if you're talking with somebody, it's got to be mutually beneficial. doesn't mean you necessarily have to sell anything or buy anything. It just means if you're adding value to their life, even if it's, complimenting them on something, then they're more likely to add value to your life. If you're just taking, then people generally shut down. So that with just the skills that I learned over the years, being self-employed and dealing with, when's the next paycheck coming in? How do I hustle for work? How do I do this marketing thing? How do I do that? I've had to do it all myself, which has allowed me to understand the bigger picture of running a business.
It seems to be a recurring element in this conversation, the mutually benefiting people and seeing things from people's perspective. Like you said, like cold calling somebody or reaching out and thinking from sort of their shoes and their place. And so lots of people in marketing, in sales and stuff talk about this, Nicc, but they talk about it in a really selfish, self-centered way where you're like trying to trick that you're trying to do something for the other person. You seem to genuinely want to think about it from somebody else and be mutually beneficial.
Yeah, look, the reality is sometimes when you cold call somebody, you have nothing to offer because you don't really know what they want. So in my case, what I found is that by being completely transparent and honest about what I want, that's actually helped me instead of, a roundabout way of saying, hey, I think you're great at this and I'd like to talk about this. I say, look, I'm contacting you for this reason. This is what I want to get out of it. This is what we're doing. If you think that's cool, we should chat. If you don't think it's cool, I won't waste your time. As simple as that. And, sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. But I know then if they do respond, it's genuine. And so then the conversation we can have then is also genuine instead of opening up with a false promise or something like that, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. Totally. It really is that sort of genuine, I think, approach to, these are relationships you're trying to build, whether it's making a sale, getting funding, in any way, actually, just in anything, it's a relationship you're trying to create. If you build that on false pretenses, the whole thing falls apart from the beginning.
Yeah, agreed.
So you've touched a couple times on this 14 years old, starting out, and now you are building amazing technology way down here, way down the line. Somehow in there, I would love to hear sort of this journey. Touched on becoming a DJ. So if you could kind of explain how you go from 14 years old into becoming a DJ and sort of what that looked like as a career.
Yeah, well, it's been an interesting one. I started 14, which was, as I said, it was jobs to earn my own money, have pocket money to be able to buy things that I wanted, which every kid does. In my case, at 14, I grew up in Spain, in Ibiza. So a lot of people will know Ibiza as the party island. I won't go into that whole thing right now, but what I will say is that being there, growing up there, obviously the music had a big influence on me. I've always been involved in music from when I could walk. And so at the age of 14, I already knew that I wanted to DJ. So I was working to be able to afford to buy turntables and vinyl because we are from the generation that played vinyl. So I started with just doing odd jobs here and there. But by the time I was 16, I got my first job as a professional DJ. And when I said professional DJ, it just meant that I was getting paid to show up and work every day as a DJ. And I haven't really looked back since then. But within that, almost 17 years of DJing, I've done a lot of other things that have just been a part of that journey. And I was always very passionate about music, but as I was DJing more and more, I became fascinated about the how and the why. From a DJ perspective, I wanted to learn more about what was actually happening between me and the audience. What was that connection? What was it, the particular song that I was playing? Was it in the key that it was playing that was creating this euphoric experience, or was it something else? I was trying to figure it out. So I started studying musicology for myself to understand the connection between music and our brains and how it influences us and everything else. But I was also fascinated with genres because as a DJ myself, I played all types of music and I wanted to learn where music came from. But I also had this personal thing where I always wanted to spot the sample. So, I listened to whether it's a house track or a hip hop track, and I wanted to be able to know what the original track was. So I listened to a lot of music. I tried to puzzle it all together. But so over my career, I've studied sound engineering. I was classically trained in music theory and guitar as a kid as well. I worked as a producer. I worked in production and events while I was DJing as well. I even had a stint as a promoter when I was studying in Madrid, which was possibly the worst experience of my life. Promoting is a completely different skill set. A&R, anything within that music ecosystem, I've pretty much touched on. And all of that has led to what I'm doing today. It's sort of a culmination of all those experiences. I sort of reached my goals as a DJ a couple of years ago, because very early on I'd set out my goals. I said, this is what I want to be able to do as a DJ. And once I've done that, it's time to move on to something else. I achieved that. And then this idea of Muru started bubbling up, and it became more than just an idea. It became a little bit of an obsession. And so that's what I've been working on now for the last 4 years.
So Muru is like, it's algorithm, it's technology, it's artificial intelligence, called what you're calling right now the world's first AI DJ, where you're trying to, I guess you could probably explain this better, but I would like it if you could just tell people what it is you're working on right now. Let's start there.
Yeah. So Muru Music is, as you said, we're building AI for music, and it's a bunch of different things that we're building, but ultimately it's to improve the music streaming experience, because I think we can all agree that streaming is just the way forward. Everyone's going to be adopting it, but the experience needs to be much better. And so we're in this privileged position right now that we have access to all this music, but with all this music comes a lot of data, and unfortunately the data is very messy. So one of the key things that we are building is the first automated classification engine that within a couple of seconds can analyze a digital audio file and with 99% accuracy say where that song belongs, in which genre. And the reason we're building that is to help streaming services, labels, publishers, everyone in the music space to categorize their music so that it's easier to find. The easier it is to find, the more music we can recommend, the more music we can discover, and everything else. On the flip side, we've also built a consumer-facing product, which is essentially the easiest way to create a personalized playlist. So with Muru, you can create a playlist up to 6 hours within 4 or 5 seconds, and it will be tailored to your personal taste, and you'll be able to adjust that playlist in real time. So you can be listening to blues and then adjust Muru and say, actually, I want to listen to blues that's a little bit more up-tempo, but I like blues from the 1960s or 1970s, as an example. It's incredibly intuitive, and it just, removes that barrier of playlist creation, because I know as a curator myself, I used to consult to hospitality venues for years and build these playlists manually. It's an incredibly hard and time-consuming thing to do, and that's for people that know music. So for people that don't know the names of the songs they like, it's even harder.
Right.
So I wanted to make it incredibly easy for those people to find and listen to the music that they love.
And you're doing it. And so to be clear to you out there listening, like, this isn't like a dream of Nick's at this point. This is something you've gotten funded and you've been building for more than 4 years at this point. And it works.
Well, it does work. We're not finished yet, but we're heading in the right direction, and we're very close to getting to the level where I'm completely and utterly proud of what we're able to achieve with AI. AI is, as you know, a hot topic anyway in all industries at the moment. But for music, it's being used in a lot of different ways, but a lot of it might be a little bit gimmicky, building a new feature that does this, and then people might get bored of it, or the other thing. I'm sticking to the ground truth of the way we experience music and improving that whole experience. And through the help of AI, we can do that on scale so that, there are no more barriers between sharing music legally. There are no more barriers between finding all the music you like and everything else that comes with it, Like, just to give you an example, with our app, you'll be able to create the perfect playlist for you for running. Now, when I say that, a lot of people will go, well, there's hundreds of apps that do that already. There are, but they don't do it this way. And this way is completely intuitive and personal to you because we're not controlling the music. You, the user, are. You have full control over the music experience. And that's just a game changer in my eyes. And it's only possible because of AI. So that's incredibly exciting.
It is. It's absolutely incredibly fascinating and exciting. Not only what AI does, but what you're doing with it, especially me being a huge music fan. Obviously, I cannot wait. Actually, tonight I'll be playing with your app all night because it's to me, it's fascinating. But before let's go back to the inception of this, because I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, or if I hope I'm not putting this the wrong way, but I know there's lots of people listening, and to use the words of Derek Webb, musician, entrepreneur who's been on my show, it's kind of like DJing, like musicians and plumbers and all things. It's like blue collar work where it's your trade. You get really good at it, but as a freelancer, you got to hustle to get the work, get paid, get really good at something. And we do that. Lots of us do that with so many different things. And you could continually do that and do that and do that. But we also sometimes, no matter how successful we are, I find, Nick, that we get sort of sometimes into this rut where now 4 years into it, you have built, and you are continuing to build something amazing. But I find that in those sort of trades that sometimes we get stuck thinking that if you had this, which is a pretty crazy idea, which is amazing that you're nailing it, but this thought to ourselves that maybe we're not the person to do this. This is way too big for me. I'm just a DJ. I'm just a drummer. I'm just a fill in the blank. So how did you did you have any of those feelings? And then if you did, how did you sort of deal with overcoming that?
Yeah, well, I think every entrepreneur has those feelings on a daily basis, but I think that's what keeps them on edge. For me, when I started it, I was tackling a specific problem, a problem that I had as a professional that I wanted to solve for me, not for anyone else. And that was, as I said before, I was creating playlists for venues, and I needed to find more music, like the type of music that I'd already found, because it was incredibly time consuming. That little problem that I was trying to solve quickly turned into a much larger problem for the world, so to speak. And obviously, when I was confronted with that, I was like, wow, okay, this is quite a big deal. And can I do that? But that's where you as an entrepreneur need to break things down into smaller steps and then figure out, am I the right person to do this? If not, who is, and can I get them to be involved? And that for me has sort of always been the ethos of success, is knowing my limitations and knowing what I'm very good at, excelling at what I'm good at, and finding other people that can help me with what they're very good at. And finding the right people that have that same passion and drive. And I have to say, I've been very lucky so far with the angel investors that have joined us, who are all very successful in their own rights, and they've just been invaluable for me for advice and guidance. So that's really helped with this on a daily basis when I think, oh, this is getting really hard. But the other thing is the team as well. And I have a CTO that has taught me everything I know about tech, because I came into this being a musicologist and a DJ, not a developer of any kind. So when I started this, algorithms were still sort of a mystery to me. So that was quite daunting. But I found a developer, an engineer, that was able to explain things to me the way I could explain them to him. So he didn't have a music background. That was very much my forte. But he is an incredibly talented engineer, and he is able to explain things to me in a very simple way. And so because of that, as a team, we've been able to achieve these amazing things because we're able to communicate the problem solution to each other very clearly. So when I talk about a musical thing and say, hey, we need to implement this into the algorithm, this is the result that we need to get to, and this is how it works. He then breaks it down to me in code and says, okay, here are all the variations. You need to think about each and every step of these and tell me what the results need to be. And then we work backwards from there. And the same goes for him. He has a technical challenge, and then he explains it to me, and then I break it down to him from a user perspective. And I say, well, a user is doing this, and this is what they want to get, and this is what their ideal result is. And then from there, we work back and we come up with the technical solution. So to summarize, I think the team is incredibly important, and also just believing in yourself and breaking things down into smaller milestones. That really helps you get through.
Absolutely. I love that I tackled a specific problem for myself and then realized later that it could benefit the world. But it wasn't like you just started with this 4 years down the line in mind, like I'm going to create that, because that would have been, there's way too many steps involved. In fact, years of steps. So I like how with your CTO, you try and understand the tech behind it. As sort of like the leader of the company, Nicc, do you feel this way about all aspects of the business, that you need to know, at least have a solid understanding of all aspects of it?
I think as a good leader, you should always understand every element of the business. But with that, understanding that, knowing that whoever's in charge of that and trusting them to do a better job than you can. For me personally, because we started very, very lean, a team of 2, it was important for me to understand as much as I could about algorithms, AI, deep learning, and everything, because I needed to be able to translate my thoughts and my ideas into code somehow. And it helped my developer by being able to talk about it in code and algorithm language, developer speak. And it was also just truly fascinating to me. Reading about algorithms 4 years ago and seeing the potential just blew my mind. So then I became obsessed with, okay, we know all this science between music and our brain and neuroscience and all these experiments that are being done. What can we add to that with our system? So I think it is very important for any leader to have a good understanding of every aspect of the business. But trust is a big element of being a good leader. And it's sometimes hard to do when you're a small company. But as you grow, you really need to focus on finding the right people that can take over your responsibilities and do it better than you, so that you can focus on the other things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Nicc, this has been a fascinating and really, really fun conversation. I do want to wrap up on one final question for you, if I could.
Of course.
It's this idea I'm working with calling the entrepreneurial gap. I've talked to hundreds and hundreds of entrepreneurs on here now from all different markets, parts of the world, and levels of success. But there seems to be this thing where no matter what we accomplish personally, and maybe you can relate to this, but no matter what we accomplish personally, we never see ourselves as successful right now. It's always in the future, in 1 month when you land that funding deal, or in 6 months when you launch the next version of the app, whatever it happens to be, these goals we set for ourselves, you and I both know that the second before you hit any of those goals, you're going to set 5 or 10 bigger ones into the future. Now, like walking towards the horizon, the further you walk, the further away it always gets. And so you've done an amazing amount of things. Since 14 years old, it's been a crazy journey that probably didn't make sense going through it always, but looking back, it absolutely does. And you're creating something like world changing, which is really, really, really cool. But I would love it right now, rather than looking forward, if you could stop and turn around and look behind you. Since 14, this whole crazy journey, the highs, the lows, the wins, and the losses, and tell me how you feel about it up until today.
Yeah, that's a good one. Well, like you said, like everyone else thinks, I've never been very good at sitting back and smelling the roses, but I've had to learn also to really enjoy the wins, no matter how big or small they were. And so if I look back at what I personally really wanted to achieve in my life up until now and what I have achieved, I can be pretty proud with myself, because I know that when my mind is set to something, I do it and I get it done and I achieve what I want to achieve. And I've also had to learn that when it doesn't happen, it's because maybe my heart wasn't really into it. And I mean, I can give you an example of DJing. When I started DJing in my bedroom at 13, I wrote on a piece of paper, I want to be a resident at one of these 2 clubs. And it was Space and Pacha, both in Ibiza. the meccas of clubbing in the world. By the time I was 16, my first job was for the Pacha group, not for the club. I was 16, but for the group. By the time I was 23, I was a resident at the club where I stayed for 7 years. That was something I'd written down and I'd very clearly envisioned. And it wasn't a matter of, I want to get it now. It was a matter of, what do I need to do to get there? Every single step was towards getting that goal. The second was being able to produce music on my own with singers that I admired. I achieved that. I'm not very good in the studio, but I learned enough to be able to be creative and then get help from others to produce a track that I like. So if I look at it that way and break it down with everything that I've done, I can be very proud of what I've achieved so far. But if I'm completely honest with you, I don't even feel like I've gotten started yet, because everything that I've done up until now feels like it's sort of the warm-up round for what's, about to happen. If that makes sense.
Totally, man. Beautiful answer. Beautiful answer. I love it. So now we've reached the point where you've talked about Muru and what it is. Could you now specifically tell the listener who it's for and where they can track it down online?
Yeah, so Muru Music is, on the one end, the consumer-facing side, it is a very easy-to-use music app for you to create playlists within seconds. So if you go to Muru Music, M-U-R-U, music.com, you get a link to be able to download it from the App Store. It works on top of Spotify at the moment, but it will work on other streaming services soon. And the aim is quite simple. If you want to create a playlist of music that you love, with Muru, you can do it very quickly. So whether you want to start with blues and end with deep house, or you want to go from Adele to Van Halen, simply put that into the app. You set a duration for your playlist up to 6 hours, and it will instantly create a playlist personalized to your taste. It's incredibly fun, so I encourage everyone to give it a try and also give us some feedback and let us know what they think of it.
Awesome. So that's murumusic.com, M-U-R-U music.com. I'll link to that in the show notes, as well as Nicc has a bit of a presence on LinkedIn. It's the only social media I could find of his, so I'll link to that as well. If you have any follow-up questions for him or just want to encourage him to continue this journey, you can track him down over there. I'll put those on the site for you. So Nicc, you are doing something amazing that's going to change my life, potentially, which is really, really awesome. And I can't wait to get to use it tonight and try it out. And I will continue to do so. But I do want to thank you for stopping by. I want to thank you for taking the time and just sharing so openly with me. And please, just keep doing what you're doing, Nicc, because it is truly awesome to watch.
Thank you. That's very nice to hear. And it's an absolute pleasure. I should add just for fun, because we talked about journey a lot in this whole podcast. Muru is actually an Aboriginal word, and it means journey. And I picked that for a very specific reason, obviously, because like what we talked about before, every good experience is about the journey. And I named it like that so that it reminded me and everyone using it that it is about the journey, whether that's life or music. So that's just a little bit of inside information.
The results don't lie. Typeform has a 57% completion rate on surveys, which is against the industry average of 20%. That's more data for you to play with. Join former President Barack Obama in the way that he collected data. Sign up for free today at typeform.com/hack. You're going to get a special deal for being a Hack the Entrepreneur listener. You get to upgrade to their pro and you'll get 30% off for the first 6 months. But you can get started absolutely for free today at typeform.com/hack. So we did it. We made it. We're here. Everyone's favorite part of the show. Let's do it. Let's find the hack.
For me, when I started it, I was tackling a specific problem, a problem that I had as a professional that I wanted to solve for me, not for anyone else. And that was, as I said before, I was creating playlists for venues, and I needed to find more music, like the type of music that I'd already found, because it was incredibly time consuming. That little problem that I was trying to solve quickly turned into a much larger problem for the world, so to speak. And obviously, when I was confronted with that, I was like, wow, okay, this is quite a big deal, and can I do that? But that's where you as an entrepreneur need to break things down into smaller steps and then figure out, am I the right person to do this? If not, who is, and can I get them to be involved?
And that's the hack. Nicc. I love this. This answers so many people's questions of how or where do you find these ideas to turn them into these huge businesses, these hugely impactful businesses. Nicc was specifically tackling a specific problem that he had himself, not for anyone else. A problem he had professionally as a DJ. He needed to solve it for himself, 100%, not even thinking about anyone else. The beauty of that is that we're not as unique as we think, first of all. So therefore, a problem that we have is probably a problem to other people. Of course, every problem and every profession is going to have sort of different scales of magnitude of people who also have your problem. But still, there's still people out there, and you have the ability now to reach them. So don't worry about that at this point. It's solving specific problems within your industry, within your profession, within your day, within your business, within anything that bothers you. Try and solve it for yourself first. And then let it see if it sort of evolves into a larger problem. Once you've solved it for yourself, a larger problem for the world, as Nicc says. And then I love this next step. Then honestly look at it and decide if you are the right person to solve this problem. You might not be. That's fine. Nicc says, if not, who is, and can I get them to be involved? Nicc, thank you so very much. A recurring theme on this show is the 80-20 rule in life, in business. Finding that 20% of effort that will get you 80% of results. This is how we make things happen. And it's also one of the biggest issues I see people having. So I've created a brand new course. It's called Define Your 20. It's a 3-part video course that will take you through the exact step-by-step framework that I use to map out my months, my quarters, my weeks, and my days. It clearly allows me to choose what to focus on, where to get the most impact and those leverage points. If you want to follow the framework that I've created myself and use day to day within my business, I go to hacktheentrepreneur.com/DYT. That's Define Your 20. And check it out. That's hacktheentrepreneur.com/DYT. All right. It's been fun. This has been a blast. I thank you so much, as always, for stopping by. And please, until next time, keep hacking the entrepreneur.